Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Today we have with us in Alhikmat studio Mr. Chris Koval. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Sheikh. I'm glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And for our viewers out there, Chris Koval is a very interesting person. He has an interesting background, so stay tuned as we continue this conversation with him. He is the founder and owner of Inside Publication, which runs a magazine presently called Inside Miramar and Pembroke Pines. And these are two cities here in Florida in the United States of America for you viewers who are viewing worldwide. Koval is also running to be the commissioner for Seat 1 in Miramar City. So we're going to continue this conversation with Chris Koval, a little bit about his background and what motivated him to run for this position. So welcome again to the show.
Thank you, Sheikh. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from originally?
Perfect. So I was born in Pennsylvania.
From the
From the cold and in the coal region. My family were coal miners. But my dad used to visit down here when he was a kid, and he got what they say, the sand in his feet. So as soon as he was old enough to leave Pennsylvania in the cold weather, my brother was 3, I was 2, and they moved to Dania, Hollywood in Dania.
Interesting.
So, and he had started a window business. So he was a gentleman that used to work 6 a.m. He'd be gone in the morning when my mom took us to school, and he'd come back at 6 o'clock at night. And him and his partner had a small little window company, and installed windows for a living. So he did pretty well with it. And we grew up in Dania Beach. Went to elementary and high school in Hollywood. But I'm 54. I've been here 52 years. So Broward my entire life.
Your entire life. What motivated you to get into publications? And I want to say that because I love publications and journalism also. So we have something very much in common. Tell us a little bit about your company.
Yep. So I wanted to get into media. So after I graduated high school, I went to local Broward Community College, but I wanted to get into radio and television. So I went to a trade school in Fort Lauderdale called Brown Institute for Radio and Television. And that was a 1-year accredited course for 9 straight months. And then after I finished there, I was a disc jockey and I was on the radio. So I was in Boca, I was in Cocoa Beach, and I stayed in radio for a few years. When I was in Cocoa Beach, the money was terrible. You're a young kid making $150 a week.
Wow.
Working overnights or the night shift, and I turned back around and moved back to South Florida and got into other professions through the 90s. But then it took a turn in the early 2000s when there was a radio station launching here in South Florida called 790 The Ticket. And it was a sports station that was going to compete against 560 WQAM because they really never had any competition. So I was the first sales rep that was hired with 790 The Ticket, with Joe Rose, Dan Lebitard, and I worked there for 7 years, sales, one of the top salespersons in the company. So that's how I got into media and sales and advertising, and I loved it because we were helping businesses grow their business by getting their message out to the masses. So then what happened, with radio taking, with all the different platforms and the internet and Sirius and satellite, I just decided I wanted to move in a different direction. So I started, my buddy of mine in West Miami, in Kendall, South Miami, had a couple magazines that he launched. And he said, Chris, the one thing you can do is sell. You're not scared to knock on doors, even though it says no soliciting.
Right.
You still go in and try to, that's the whole point of all this. So I did it with them for a couple of years, and then I said, you know what? I can do my own magazine. The hardest part is actually meeting business owners, finding decision makers, and asking them to buy your product and explaining it to them. I know how to put I could put a publication together. I have relationships with Pines and Miramar city officials, and I, found a wonderful graphics designer to help me with the publication. So we launched it about 4 years ago. We were doing one just in Miramar, mailing to all of Miramar, and it was going okay. But then what I decided to do is combine 2 cities into one publication and mail to all of Pines and Miramar west of Flamingo Road, all of the gated communities, because still an effective way to reach those folks is through the mail.
Of course.
You have to get in the mail. They have gated communities. You're getting it in the mail for them to look at it and then react and see all the businesses and use coupons and read about our elected officials, because I have content in the publication.
A lot of people ask me, why don't I go full-time online? And I always tell people the same thing. There are a lot of people out there who love to get a hard copy,
That's right,
original magazine, sit back, relax with a cup of coffee, or if they're traveling,
Yep.
if, you know what I mean, or they're on vacation.
Yep.
And they will take their magazines and sit back and relax and go through things. People just love that. Yes, you got that group of people who everything they do is on a phone, on a computer, but you cannot forget the masses who love to read a magazine or still traditionally read the newspaper. You cannot, throw them out.
correct.
Throw them out totally and ignore them. And that's a powerful audience. That's a powerful audience that love to read. So talking about that and going into your career, what motivated you to get into politics?
Well, as a Miramar resident, my wife and I moved to Miramar. We were living in our nice little condo in Weston, and we started having a family. And the condo wasn't going to hold a family. So we drove around, 16 years ago, and we were coming up on Miramar Parkway, and we went over I-75, and we're driving and driving and driving, and we're seeing all these beautiful communities. So we kept going and going until Miramar Parkway literally ended into this community called Sunset Lakes. And it was a weekend.
Beautiful community.
Yep, thank
yes.
you. And there was a sign up for an open house. We weren't even looking for homes that day, but we went in, the open house, we were able to get into the gate, and we fell in love with the house, the backyard, the kitchen my wife loved. She's Peruvian, she loves to cook, and we put an offer in the house. So that was in 2005 or 6, I think 6. And that's how we became a Miramar resident, and I started living my life in Miramar with our family. Then subsequently we had 2 daughters. So the house is perfect. We have our 2 daughters that we had that are now 15 and 11. So as far as getting involved in the politics, when you're living in a community, when you're living in a city, and I had relationships with elected officials
Right.
vis-a-vis the magazine. And if there's people that get involved, there's people that see things or want to make change, or they see things that possibly they don't feel are right, or what some elected officials are doing which they don't agree with. We have the ability to either go to commission meetings, voice our opinions, and that's one level that you can do. Or you could actually say, have a real deep conversation with your spouse or internally and say, listen, this is going to be a huge sacrifice. I know it's not going to be easy, especially running up against an incumbent commissioner, but it's something that if you really put 150% and a full passion and people see that, then it's something that you can make happen. So there were things going on in the city that I didn't agree with, things that he was doing. And back, coincidentally enough, back in March, 2 days before the pandemic, before they kind of locked us down, I announced on the Next Door Neighbors app that we have out west, which has a massive following of neighbors that communicate with each other. I announced that I was running for commissioner, and it's taken off from there.
That is interesting, because I see in your magazine you have a lot of articles by commissioners and the mayors, etc. And that is phenomenal, and I'm sure that you got a lot of ideas and a lot of reasons behind that in what you hear, what you see, that you have realized that you can do, maybe in some cases, of course, a lot better than what is presently being done. Well, time just goes and time just goes. We have been talking for more than 10, 12 minutes now. So when we come back after the short break, we want to concentrate on this seat 1
Okay.
as commissioner in Miramar City. How you go about voting for you in this position, whether you can do mail-in ballots, you know, all the different kind of changes, what you hope to change when you become commissioner. And I don't want to say if, but I'm saying when, and what area do you cover. We want to discuss all these different areas so viewers will have a better idea that when they vote for you, what they expect to get from voting for Chris Koval. So stay tuned. When we come back after the short break, we'll continue this conversation with Chris Koval, who is running for seat 1 as Murmur Commissioner, Miramar City Commissioner here in Florida. Stay tuned as we continue the conversation with him.
Assalamu alaikum. Allah gives hikmat, wisdom, to whomsoever He wills. And whomsoever is given wisdom is certainly given a lot of good. Only the people of understanding will benefit from the reminder. Tune in to Alhikmat TV for khutbahs, lectures, and Islamic reminders. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Who is Who in America on Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Again, it's a pleasure to have with us in Alhikmat studio Chris Koval, and welcome back to the show.
Thank
Chris.
you, Sheikh.
And those of you who have just tuned in, Chris Koval is a journalist. He's a man who loves media. He's the owner of Inside Publications and runs a magazine called Inside Miramar and Pembroke Pines. Presently is the candidate for seat 1. Seat 1 is a commissioner of Miramar City. So stay tuned as we continue this conversation with Chris Koval on as to why he is so much involved in running for this position, what is the interest, the challenges, etc. behind this position. So let us start off with the first question. When we talk about seat 1, like other cities, what area does that cover?
Okay, great question. And one of the most important questions when I'm out there knocking on doors or campaigning, that people ask, they don't know that if you're elected commissioner in Miramar, you're actually elected the commissioner of the whole city. Some cities in Broward County have districts. Our neighbors in Pembroke Pines, if you run in a certain district where you live and you have a section of the city that you oversee. And then that's how those cities run their cities. In Miramar, we have a very long city, not very wide, but it's very long. It's 12 miles from State Road 7 all the way out to where I live in Sunset Lakes.
Right.
And if you're elected for either seat 1, 2, 3, or 4, or the mayor, you are the mayor or the commissioner for the entire city. A lot of people have said to me they did not know that, and they would like to see that changed in the future.
Because you know what is interesting about that? The fact that when you run for the entire city, the election can be very competitive. Very competitive because of the fact it's the entire city people got the choice of voting.
Correct.
As well as when you run for a certain district, you can just concentrate on that district.
Absolutely
So it
correct.
makes the running for the position easier. But it, on the other hand, it makes the job more difficult because you gotta look at managing areas of responsibilities for the entire city as opposed to a little district. So it's a very challenging position, huh?
Yes, and there's different needs
Yeah.
from the historical east side of Miramar to the central to the west. So if you had elected officials that were living in that district, they could oversee and be the champion of causes inside of that district. Now, of course, if I'm elected, or when I'm elected, Sheikh, you'll do everything you can to represent and help everybody in Miramar, and that'll obviously be my goal. But if we had districts similar to Pembroke Pines, I think that those folks that represent the districts and their folks that live in those areas, I think it's more effective.
Of course.
So the other thing that people, as I'm out there knocking on doors and I'm talking to people about the election coming up, and they look at me and go, coming up? We just had an election in November. They don't even realize that we have our Miramar City elections in March.
That's important. What date in March?
It's March 9th. It's a Tuesday. So it's fascinating to see people's faces when they see me. What's this guy doing? I'm not going to passing out my information, trying to talk to them, see what their concerns are. And a lot of folks don't even know that we have our elections this time of year, where a lot of cities have theirs during the presidential election. So there's two things. You have great voter turnout because people are going out for other initiatives or voting for other
right,
things.
so they might as well drop their ballot for you one time.
Correct. And they also, it costs the city money to set up these elections. There's only a handful of cities in Broward. I think there might be 6 or 7 out of about 30 cities that actually have their elections in March. It's costing the cities to set up all these precincts and have poll workers and all what they have to do. So it's an expense that it's costing.
So is that something you may be looking at?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Adjusting
everything's
when you
on
get
the
into
yes.
position?
Now listen, these policies of districts or not districts, or when we have our elections, have been in the city charters for a long, long time. It's a process.
Right,
But
right.
it's something that I'm just speaking for the people I talk to. Those have been two things. Why don't we have districts? And also, why do we have our elections in March?
So what are some of the changes that you would like to see in the city of Miramar when you become a commissioner?
Yep, I think...
And I like to use the word when, not
Yep,
if.
thank
Let's
you,
be very
thank
positive.
you.
When?
I think the biggest thing that I feel with my opponent and what I want to bring to this position is honesty, integrity, and accountability. And what do I mean by that? Those are great words to use, and anybody could use those. But I don't think that we've had a lot of honesty, or we don't have integrity right now with that position and that current elected official. And I think that he loves looking out for his best interests and promoting himself the best that he can. I think always with the ultimate goal of securing votes from people. I don't think a lot of it comes from his heart, because the self-promoting and self-campaigning is endless. And as an incumbent as he is, he has the resources and the tools of the city to continuously be doing that. And there's things that have come up that we've kind of exposed, and are trying to educate the folks out there that are eligible to vote with issues that happened several years ago with allegations and settlements that the city actually settled on his behalf when it came to former employees.
So you're trying to get this honesty and this integrity into the city.
Correct.
That you think that it has lost in certain areas.
Correct. In particular, the seat I'm running for.
Yeah.
Here's the other thing that I think is very important for the viewers to understand with Miramar. You literally have to pick the person you want to run against.
Oh.
Right? That's exactly the reaction I get from folks as well. So we have 3 seats that are up for grabs on March 9th. I could have picked between 2 of the other seats, but you have to pick the person you want to run against. So, for instance, my friends, I have elected a friend, good elected official that is elected in Dania Beach. They had 3 seats up in November, but they literally will take the 3 highest voters. Say there's 12 people that run for the 3 seats in Dania.
Right.
Whoever gets the 3 highest votes wins. So those 3 folks they'll say, okay, Marco, you're now the commissioner of seat 1 in Dania, and Miss Davis, you're the commissioner of seat 2, because they received the 3 highest votes.
Right.
In Miramar, I'm running against Chambers, or my opponent, and then another young lady, and whoever gets the most votes just from the 3 of us will be the winner. There's 4 other people running for seat 3, and 2 people running for seat 2. So you have to pick the person you want to run against.
Right.
Which
right.
is odd in itself. I could end up with, let's say out of the 12 candidates that are running for this March election in Miramar, I could get the 2nd highest amount of votes in Miramar let's say Max ends up, or vice versa. Let me take a positive spin. I end up getting the most votes. And then there's a young lady in seat 3 gets the second most. And then another person gets the third amount, but they don't beat the guy that is currently in, they're not going to win. So it's you know, I could get 5,000 votes and win, and the young lady who's running in our seat could get 4,000. The other 2 seats may not even get that, but she's not going to be an elected official.
So that brings me to the point. What are some of the challenges you face in running for this position?
Raising money.
You're kidding.
Because you're campaigning in an entire city. So a lot of folks don't realize
it's not like this one district that you concentrate on, and you can really get the funds to benefit the people of that district.
Correct.
Oh, it's split into the entire city.
Yep. So I need to be campaigning from east to west with billboards and yard signs and direct mail pieces, doing stuff like
That
this.
brings me to the other point of mail-in ballots. What's going on with that?
Okay.
You know, that's a big thing.
Yes. No,
in America nowadays. So do they use mail-in ballots to vote for you?
Yes. So right now, if folks who are listening or that are local to the area, if you are an eligible voter in Miramar, you can request your vote by mail in Broward.
And how do they request this?
You go to Broward, S as in Sam, E-O, Supervisor of Election, SOE.org. And right there, you can request your mail-in ballot. You have until February 27th, or if you go to kovalcares.com, our candidate website, I have the link to the Supervisor of Elections.
So have you mailed out this link to people's home?
Yes, we're in the process of doing that. We're in the process of doing it through Nextdoor. And we have been knocking on doors, letting them know it's time now to get your vote by mail ballot. Now again, folks that requested it for the other elections, they have 2 years that they'll be getting it mailed to them. So I've talked to folks that has said, Chris, you're good to go. We've already going to get ours because they requested it for all of the elections in South Florida. But some people didn't realize that we had an election in March, and they didn't. So now they're going on and letting me know, hey, I requested my vote by mail. I'm getting it any day.
Interesting. That is interesting. I mean, the mail-in ballots is a very, very interesting thing. It makes life easy for people, especially with the pandemic and getting outside there and all the complications. I think that's a fantastic way to go, and it can really help and make the election much easier.
Now the good thing, Sheikh, though, is we have tons of precincts in Miramar, and this is the only thing that's going to be on the ballot, the 3 commission seats. So if you do decide to go on March 9th from 7 to 7, you'll be in and out. You literally, by the time your car cools off, you'll be finished and back in your car. So there's nothing else in Miramar on the ballot except for the 3 races and the 10 or 11 candidates that are running. So it's really, really quick.
So it's going to be easy. And where are some of the places that they normally use?
Sure, they use tons of the schools, all of the elementary schools, community centers.
And they will have signs, of course, up where the voting.
Yes, the day we'll be setting up signs.
Stations are.
Yep. So when you get there, if you want to get there first thing in the morning, it's 7 a.m. or 8 or whatever, we'll have volunteers out and our yard signs everywhere. So they're looking to focus on Chris Koval and vote.
That is fantastic. Well, you know, time just goes. Time goes and goes. So we have already been speaking for more than 10, 11, 12 minutes. So can you share with our viewers whatever you want to share in the next couple of seconds as we conclude the segment in this program?
Yep, I
What
will.
would you like our viewers to hear? What would you like the voters to hear? And what would you expect from the voters as you run for this position, seat 1 as commissioner of the city of Miramar?
Yep, I think what the main takeaway is that I've been at it now for a year, letting people know that they have an alternative candidate, a change candidate that we can get into Miramar. We'll look out for all of Miramar, and that their voices will be heard. I want the residents' input and I don't want to surprise them with things that constantly they're telling me, I didn't know this, I didn't know this, I didn't know you're putting a billboard up here, I didn't know that you could give yourself a pay raise without it being voted on like my opponent did. He gave himself a $10,000 pay raise last January that has a lot of residents upset. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be elected officials, again, I harp on it, but that are honest, they have integrity, and they'll be held accountable. I firmly believe that if the folks come out and vote, and they're kind of sick of what he's been representing for the last 6 years, we have a great chance of winning this and representing our diverse, one of the most diverse cities, not in Broward County, in America, and that we could get some diversity into our city council that will look after everybody. And when I'm knocking on doors, the diversity is unbelievable, and folks are wanting someone to represent them.
You're right. Miramar is one of the most diverse city in the United States of America.
Yep,
That's
absolutely.
a powerful point to end on. Well, thank you very much, Chris Koval, for being with us on the show. We wish you all the best, and
Thank you.
congratulations in advance. And do remember us when you become the commissioner of Miramar City.
Absolutely, yeah, my word.
So for those of you who have just tuned in, we have been talking to Chris Koval. He's a man who loves journalism. He is the president and the founder of Inside Publication, and presently runs a magazine, Inside Miramar and Pembroke Pines City. He's presently the candidate for seat 1 as commissioner of Miramar City here in Florida. So it has been a pleasure talking to him, his background, his purpose for running, etc. And do remember, always stay tuned to Alhikmat TV 24/7 online. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.